or comprehensive reforms, and India deserves.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump steps back from threats to use tariffs or force over Greenland, saying a deal with Denmark is possible. NATO Chief Mark Rutte says Greenland sovereignty is not discussed, with Trump focusing instead on Arctic security. Denmark's foreign minister says US President Donald Trump has sent positive signals by ruling out military action over Greenland. Trump also says he has a framework deal and drops tariff threats after talks with NATO Chief Mark Rutte. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he will meet U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to discuss the war in Ukraine and frozen Russian assets. U.S. President Donald Trump is also set to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Davos. 7 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt, say they will join U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace, along with side Israel. Trump says Russia's Vladimir Putin has also accepted, but Moscow says it is still reviewing the invitation. Syria's government accuses the Kurdish-led SDF of attacks that killed 11 soldiers, but the group disputes the claims and blames at least one blast on Syrian troops. The incidents risk derailing a 4-day ceasefire as Damascus pushes for the SDF to integrate into the state. The Trump administration starts immigration enforcement raids in Maine called Operation Catch of the Day. The Homeland Security Department confirms a spokesperson suggests targeting Maine responds to a political feud with Democratic Governor Janet Mills over sanctuary police. Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez says that she is approaching talks with the United States without fear. A senior U.S. official confirms she will visit Washington soon for diplomatic discussions. A Republican-led U.S. House panel votes to start contempt proceedings against Bill and Hillary Clinton over their refusal to testify in the Jeffrey Epstein probe. The full House will decide whether to refer the couple to the Justice Department for possible prosecution. Now we start with NATO. A NATO spokesperson has stated that Secretary General Mark Rutte had very productive talks with U.S. President Donald Trump on security in the Arctic on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland. The spokesperson added that negotiations between Denmark, Greenland, and the United States will go forward, aimed at ensuring that Russia and China never gain a foothold economically and militarily in Greenland. Meanwhile, Rutte has stated that he had a good meeting with Trump, but a lot of work was needed to be done in Greenland. He has also added that the issue of whether Greenland will remain with Denmark did not come up in his talks with the U.S. president. Let's in fact listen into what Rutte has shared.
Mr. Rutte, is it a good deal? Is it a good deal?
I think it's a very good meeting tonight, but still a lot of work to be done. But I've got to run.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Asta Chadha. She's an Associate Professor of International Relations of Rutte Meeting University, joins us live from Kyoto. Thank you very much, Dr. Professor, for joining us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Asuma.
Thank you. Now looking at this, do you think that, Trump could have used any other way to raise alarm over Greenland?
I mean, if we understand his style of politics, we do know that it's a mixture of trying to strike a deal, which is very economic negotiation-based framework he operates in, but also the fact that he wants the US to have an upper hand, which means there needs to be coercion. So, but specifically with regard to Greenland, I think there seems to be a little bit of confusion where his administration is concerned, because after the success in Venezuela, wherein they did not receive as wide-ranging criticisms as they might have expected, probably Greenland seemed easier. Or that deal seemed easier to acquire, but the pushback that they're receiving from the European allies clearly force them in some way to rethink their strategy, specifically strategy of coercion and strategy of breaking away from long-standing historical alliances. So I don't know how else they could have done it apart from what they're trying to do now, which is sitting down on the table, negotiating with the parties concerned, and not avoiding any of those states that are sovereign or have semi-autonomous status, and making sure that any deal that involves a nation or a state or a territory does involve people from that very territory who can speak for it.
Right. And now that Rutte has issued a statement saying that they had a good talk, but he has said that Trump and him did not discuss about whether Greenland will remain with Denmark or not. So it's like, not discussing the elephant in the room. Why do you think even Rutte is walking eggshells around Trump at this moment and in such an important issue?
Well, on one hand, we need to look at this issue as an ongoing one, not something that is settled because the tariffs have been rolled back. That's one. Two, I do not also think that the NATO allies would want to sever or in any way, see their NATO ally in the United States, that relationship adversely affected either. They do understand that the United States is very, very important for Arctic security, which brings me to my third point, which is I think there is still a little bit of confusion between these parties, or at least that's how they are communicating. So this is a problem with their communication, wherein on one hand, from President Trump and his administration, we keep hearing the word Greenland and the deal over Greenland and good deal for the United States, whereas from the European side and from NATO, we are hearing more about Arctic security, which goes beyond Greenland as well. So US has maintained its strategic presence in Greenland. It is also probably agreeable that without the cooperation and joint efforts of NATO allies, no one state can fully assure territorial, economic, and new sea route based security in the Arctic. That's true, but this difference of terminology and the difference in the way they are communicating is surely leading to a lot more chaos, because if we look at purely at the responses coming out of Greenland, they seem to also be very confused. They do not know of, or they're not aware of any such negotiations that took place. They do not think any deal has been struck, and clearly they have not been consulted.
And you rightfully highlighted that strategy of coercion might be out of the picture for now, but the stakes are again too high. What would a good realistic deal look like for Greenland and Europe?
Any good deal would have to address the core US interests, which currently lie on two basic pillars, right? One is the economic pillar, wherein they want to secure the critical mineral supply chain. They want to make sure that China does not dominate it. And the second one is about the overall Arctic security, and Greenland being part of that Arctic security architecture, wherein more and more sea routes or trade routes that would open up eventually in the Arctic, US makes sure that they again don't get dominated by other competing powers like Russia and China. And to do that, United States would want cooperation from its NATO allies. Now, what would a good deal look like? A good deal would look like something that allows President Trump to feel that he's won in this negotiation by securing certain ownership rights over certain mineral exploration, or the fact that US maintains certain amount of control over the trade routes in one way or another, or at least gets to manage certain aspects of economy related to Greenland. But we also need to make sure that probably the European allies would not be happy if too much control is diluted, or too much of sovereignty is given up when we talk about Greenland. So the deal will need to strike the balance. Probably also President Trump will have to roll down a little bit of his expectations with regard to Greenland, because this is not Venezuela.
Yes, 100%. And how do you think a good deal for U.S. would look like? Of course, keeping in mind that what President Trump is asking for might not be, realistic in a way.
I mean, a good deal would also, for United States, would also mean that it can be pitched in his home turf as something that he won for America. In a bid to, go out in his expansionist vision of United States, the whole idea that his campaign was based on, which is making America great again and being very inward-looking in some way, focusing on strengthening America's core capabilities, seems to have been lost. So I think those would need to be addressed. And I think this deal, if it does involve any form of control or any form of, let's say, ownership or stake that US might hold in terms of critical minerals, that could definitely be pitched back in his home country also as a win-win, both on the international foreign policy front and on the domestic front.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Asta Chadha for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you. Now we move the focus on to Middle East. Syria has accused the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, known as SDF, of attacking its troops, killing 11 soldiers, while the SDF disputes this, blaming Syrian troops for an accidental blast involving explosives. These incidents threaten a 4-day ceasefire announced on Tuesday, aimed at easing the tensions and pushing for the SDF's integration into Syria's central state. Syria has claimed a drone strike by the SDF, which has killed 7 soldiers securing a military base, but the SDF has denied the strike, attributing the deaths to the mishandling of explosives by Syrian forces. Later, Syria has reported 11 soldiers killed and 25 wounded in attacks by the SDF after the ceasefire began. The SDF did not comment on these broader accusations, raising doubts over the future of the truce. Now for this discussion, we welcome Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how do these conflicting accounts from Syria and SDF once again affect the credibility of this newly announced ceasefire?
Well, good morning, Asuma. Firstly, thank you very much for getting me on this channel and discussing something very important. Now, these are some of the distinct statements given which are controversial in the sense that SDF has denied that they have got no role in this killing of these 11 soldiers, whereas the government sources say that it was a drone strike which killed 7 soldiers. In fact, what was happening was that the soldiers were handling the explosive and it detonated, and because of that, that accident took place. And it is a very fragile ceasefire. On the first day itself, both the parties are accusing each other. So I don't think this ceasefire will have any credibility in the future also. So we have to see how this integration of SDF takes place with the government forces. So that is very, very important point to remember. And secondly, the way the government forces are advancing toward northeast, where the Kurdish people have the majority, and the last 2 towns which have been left on this thing not covered by the government forces are Hasaka and Kameshi, and that their leader Muslim Amidi has already said these are the red lines. We will not going to accept any government forces entering the Kurdish majority in these 2 towns. Asuma.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And what impact could these alleged incidents have on efforts to integrate the SDF into Syria's central state structures? Do you think it's now more challenging than ever?
Look, the point is that there is a mistrust, there is a no trust between both the parties. And as we have seen that there are a lot of things have changed in the last 30 months. When Bashar al-Assad was thrown by former Al-Qaeda commander Shara, who is the president of Syria now. A lot of equations have changed. The Americans were the people who were supporting the SDF against the ISIS. Turkey was already against the SDF because they thought that all the terrorist action which had been taking place in eastern part of Turkey was because of the Kurdish people. So the lot of equation has changed. As a result of that, now the SDF, that is the Kurdish majority, this organization, they feel they have been dished down by the Americans, because the Americans have said that the partnership is over once the ISIS has been thrown out of Syria. So now the Kurdish people or the SDF feel that they have been neglected by both by the Americans and by the local Syrian people there. So I think because of that mistrust between the government forces and SDF, the integration of SDF into the mainstream is going to be a problem, and let us see in future what happens. But presently, as of now, the chances are very bleak. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Colonel. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. Israel says it has struck 4 crossings along the Syria-Lebanon border used by Hezbollah to smuggle weapons. The Israeli military says the targets were near Hermel and part of a wider operation against the group. The strikes followed fresh raids across South Lebanon, despite a ceasefire in place for more than a year. Lebanon's local media reports airstrikes on several towns after Israeli evacuation warnings. 19 people were wounded in Kanarit, where 3 journalists were also injured. Lebanon's army accuses Israel of violating the truce and undermining efforts to disarm Hezbollah. Israel says it is responding to repeated ceasefire breaches. More than 350 people have been killed since the truce began. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for staying with us. Now, as we see, Israel has continued to strike on the Syria-Lebanon border, regardless of the longer than almost a year now, the ceasefire with Hezbollah. So how is this affecting? Is this being affected towards dismantling Hezbollah so far? What's your analysis?
Well, you see that for the last 1 year there has been ceasefire, but in spite of the ceasefire, the Israelis, whenever they think that the Hezbollahs are getting the arm, they always strike it. It is the same thing happening in Gaza also. In spite of the ceasefire in Gaza, Israel doesn't think twice before attacking in Gaza. It doesn't think twice before attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon-Syria border. So I think this is this disarmament of Hezbollah, which is taking place with the Lebanon government and the Lebanon army is trying to do. It is going to affect that, because if the ceasefire is not being followed by any party, then it gives a mistrust in the mind of the other party that this is something, a ruse which they are trying to project. And as a result of that disarmament exercise which is going in Lebanon of disarming the Hezbollah is going to suffer on that.
Right. And what political and security consequences could arise from Lebanon's army, that is not capable of protecting their efforts to disarm Hezbollah, and also their land, but also it accuses Israel of undermining the ceasefire?
Absolutely, Asuma. Like Lebanon army is a professional army, and if they have been given a task to disarm the Hezbollah, and if the other party keep on striking Lebanon, so that the credibility of the Lebanon army goes down, and even the morale of the Lebanon army goes down, that they are doing the task of the Israelis. The disarmament of Hezbollah is in the favor of Israel. If they are doing favor to Israel by disarming Hezbollah, and in spite of that, if Israel is attacking Lebanon, so it not only gives a mistrust in the mind of the Hezbollah army, but it also demoralizes the army, because then the people will think that the Lebanon army is not capable of defending its own people, defending its own land. So that is, I think, that is not the correct thing for the Israelis to do. If the ceasefire is there and your task is being done by Lebanon army, then let them do the task. And once they fail in that task, or if they say that we can't do it, then Israel should step in. Otherwise, before that, I don't think Israel should take any action.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. How do you analyze the current capability of Lebanese army?
Lebanon army is a capable army, but only thing is, if there is an insurgency, you see anywhere, wherever there is an insurgency or the terrorist organization like Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, so that there the problem is that the credibility or the efficiency of the army is affected. because you are not very sure from where the firing is going to come from. You are fighting the enemy which you cannot see. So I think Lebanon army is a professional army, but like any other army which is facing the insurgency or the terrorism, so the task becomes all the more difficult. Asuma.
Right. And how do you analyze the capacity or capacity of Hezbollah right now? Is it becoming weak, or is it still well supported by Iran?
No, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the supply chain from Iran to Hezbollah has been to large extent has been destabilized. And as a result of that, the arms are not coming at that number which they used to come earlier. That is number one. Number two, when Hamas attacked Israel in October 23, after that Israel went all out against Hezbollah, and Hezbollah leadership, Hezbollah weaponry, Hezbollah's military capabilities, all were reduced to almost zero. So I don't think that Hezbollah as of now is any formidable force, because of, first, the Iran cannot support it as it was supporting earlier. Secondly, it has been badly beaten by the Israeli forces, including the airstrikes and other things. So Hezbollah as of now is not a very potent force.
And lastly, how do you analyze what's the strategy of Israel as Israel continues to breach the ceasefire that's formally in place, and also it continues to attack all these sites across Lebanon and Syria both?
Look, Israel is absolutely clear in their objective. Their objective is to finish off Hamas in Gaza and finish off Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that is their strategy, and they are working on it, and they have made it very clear to the whole world that they are not going to tolerate this. And to achieve that objective, they will go to any extent to do whatever they feel is within their capability. So I think Israel is following what they have to do, and they will ensure that in future the incident like October 23 does not take place against Israel. So they are very clear this time. So I don't think they will allow, if there is any chance of Hezbollah rearming itself or becoming stronger than before it becomes strong as it was earlier, Israel will keep on striking whether Lebanon army or the Lebanon government likes it or not. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Colonel Sirohi, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he would like to bring together the leaders of Egypt and Ethiopia to work out a deal to solve a dispute over Ethiopia's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which both Egypt and Sudan consider a serious threat to vital water supplies. Let's listen into what Trump has shared.
The dam that's been built in Ethiopia. It's one of the largest dams in the world, the largest dam in Africa, but it's one of the largest dams anywhere in the world. It was financed by the United States, and it basically blocks the Nile River. When I think of Egypt, I think about the Nile more than any other place, in all fairness, but it goes through Ethiopia. And a dam was built, a very big one, very, very big one, massive. And it was something that should have been talked about a long time ago when they were building it or financing it. So I got involved at the end of my first term, and I was going to have a deal. We were going to have pretty close to a deal. Then we had a rigged election, and I left. And of course, Biden didn't do anything about it because he didn't know he was alive. And here I come back, and it's become a very dangerous issue, the dam, and I'll see if I can get that back on track. We were all set to make a deal. We're going to do a joint venture of sorts, and it would have been good. I think it would have been good for both.
Now we welcome back Colonel Sanjay Sirohi. He's joining us from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for staying with us. Now, can you tell us how will this dam affect, both Egypt, Ethiopia, and even Sudan for their water supplies? And Why is Ethiopia being inconsiderate about the neighboring countries for their water?
Look, the problem is, Asuma, that
Yes.
if you see that all over the world, the main problem which the world is going to face in the future will be water crisis. And you see anywhere, wherever the dams are being constructed, so the problem it affects the other countries also from where the rivers are flowing. Like in case of Ethiopia, Sudan, the Nile river starts from there and it ends in the Mediterranean Sea. And the dam which has been made on the Nile River. So whosoever country construct a dam on the Nile River, it affects the countries through which the water is flowing. So it is very, very important, and this has been a long dispute between the two countries. And I think Donald Trump has already said, like he made in his statement in his first term also, he tried to sort out this problem. Now, again, he's talking about that. So he will if he gets into war, then I think the problem will be sorted out for the future.
Right.
Asuma.
So lastly, what do you think, what can these countries do with or without Trump for this crisis?
Look, the point is that if you see all over the world,
Yes.
Mr. Donald Trump has taken over as the United Nations, and he is everywhere. He thinks that he is the one who can sort out all the problems of the world. That is what he believes. And on the other hand, if you see the other problems, most of the problems are created by him now. So on the one hand, he is trying to bring peace in the countries. On the other hand, he himself is trying to bring war, whether it was Venezuela, whether it is Greenland. Now he's talking about Diego Garcia. So this man is totally unpredictable. We cannot say what is the intention of his. Now in calling leaders of Ethiopia and Egypt, what is his intention, whether he will ask them to deposit $1 billion each for sorting out the problem. So I think I am not very sure how he is going to sort out this problem, because this is a long-standing problem between the two countries, and it is also not mandatory for these two countries to agree to what Mr. Donald Trump says. United Nations is a different ball game, because it is the organization which is represented by 193 countries, and Mr. Donald Trump is the one who decides himself. So let us see how things move on. Asuma.
Yes, very interesting indeed. Thank you very much, Colonel Sirohi, for highlighting that and sharing that. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that United States remains the best place for investment in Davos. Trump has added that the U.S. economy is performing much stronger than expected with rapid growth and growing investor confidence. He has pointed out that big companies like Apple, Toyota are expanding their investments in the U.S. for proving the country's strong economic momentum. Trump has also highlighted that revenues from protective tariffs will keep increasing and showcasing his administration's trade policies that work. Trump has stated robotics will drive huge demand, but there may not be enough workers to fill the roles in new facilities being developed. Let's listen into what Trump has shared.
I do want to say the people in this room are amazing. Most of you were in the other room also. And the United States is doing really well, doing like nobody thought was actually possible, certainly not this soon. It's 1 year. It's exactly a year. If you think about it, time flies. It's 25%. That's a long clock. I think it's been reported by even people that aren't lovers of Donald Trump that it's been maybe the best first year for any president. I think in terms of what we've accomplished, it might very well be. But we've accomplished a lot, including ending 8 wars. I have 1 to go. I thought that was going to be one of the easiest ones, and it's turning out to be one of the tougher ones. But you heard me say before, 25,000, 30,000 people are dying a month. It's ridiculous. And I think we're getting close. Jared's here, and Steve Witkoff is here. And a lot of people that are working on that are here, and they've done a good job. I think it could have gone into a world where if we weren't here, it was out of control. But I think we're going to get it.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.